Hello, welcome to Wilson's Barbecue. In this video, I'm going to be cooking a pork shoulder on the new original PK. So I picked this up from Pro Smoke in the last couple of days. I seasoned it yesterday. If you haven't seen my unboxing video, you can click the link above. Go check that out, check out all the new features. And today we're just going to do our first cook, which is going to be a pork shoulder. Should be pretty simple, so let's get to it. So the setup that I'm going with today, you can pretty much replicate in any barbecue outside, whether it's a Weber kettle, whether it's a PK. We're going to go for an indirect way of cooking. We've got our coals on one side, we've got a cooler spot on the other side, which is where the meat's going to go. And I've just put an ambient temp probe in here through the probe port that comes with this particular model. You can fit an analog thermometer, but I don't have one to fit in here, so we're just going to use this. So we're just going to put a water pan in there. And that's really just to catch the juices, to be honest. I'm not going to put any water in there because I personally don't feel like it's really necessary. Just going to catch all those juices that drop down and stop the bottom of the PK from getting dirty. So as I say, we've got our charcoal in there. We just need some fire lighters and start getting this pit up to temp. So we're going to let this run for a bit. Just going to make sure our vents are open underneath. So we'll let some of those coals catch. In the meantime, we'll just get our pork shoulder ready. Right, so we're going to keep it really simple. We've got this pork shoulder that came from my local butcher. Doesn't have much of a fat cap on it, but that's fine. We're just putting a little bit of mustard on there as a binder, just because the surface is a little bit dry, but you definitely don't need to use a binder. I normally don't, but when the surface is dry like this, you need something to help the rub stick. You can use water, oil, mustard, anything you want, and I guarantee you're never going to taste it. And with the rub, we're just keeping it really simple. We're going pretty much 2 parts black pepper to 1 part salt, and there was something left in the bottom of this, which I think was paprika, salt and pepper, maybe some garlic, but not a lot. So pretty much 2 parts pepper to 1 part salt. Looking to get a real nice bark on this. So while the PK is coming up to temp, I'm just going to chunk up some of this post oak wood. So there'll be a link in the description below where you can buy these. This is going to be too big for the PK, so I'm just going to cut it down maybe into about 3 chunks. So that should be about good. So we've got a nice few coals in the corner getting nice and hot. We've got our probe just coming through the probe port here, and that's just linked up to the ThermPro TP20. And we're probably not going to need this today. Just means I've got easy access to this charcoal. So this is starting to feel pretty hot now, so we'll get this closed down. And we've got the indirect cooking setup going on, so our vent under the coals is open fully, the vent above the coals is closed, and then I'm going to open up the vent above the meat entirely, so we've got an indirect cooking situation. Cold air is going to come through below, through the coals, take the smoke over the meat, up and out, and the meat's going to be on this side. So once it gets up to about 250 Fahrenheit or about 120 Celsius, I'll put the meat on. I'll probably put a wood chunk on and scatter the other wood chunks around, and then I'll start to dial in the temperatures, and I'll show you that when we get to it. So it's only been about 15 minutes and the pit is now up to about 240, so I'm going to get the meat on, and I might put a piece of wood on as well, and then we'll start dialing in those temperatures. There's our pork shoulder, and put a little bit of wood on for some smoke and scatter the other pieces just around, so they'll eventually catch. So we'll close that down, and we'll have to start dialing in the temperature with these vents in a moment. So right, so we've got a nice amount of smoke going on. The pit temp is at about 257. What I'm going to do is just dial back the vents, because I don't want to overshoot and then have to cool the pit down. So I'm going to close the vent down at the bottom, the intake, by probably about just 1/4, and then the top vent I'm going to close that down by about 1/4 as well. See if we can stabilize that temperature. It might need a few adjustments over the next maybe 15-20 minutes, just dial it in perfectly. I'm aiming for that sweet 250. So far it's holding steady. It's definitely efficient because I came up to temperature real quick, and that's that thick cast aluminium body. So it's been about 20 minutes. I ended up shutting the top vent down by half, and you can see on these little notches, this is the halfway point. I started at 1/4, moved down to halfway, so that's halfway open, and exactly the same on the underside. So the PK is doing its thing. It'll probably do its thing for another 6-7 hours. Hopefully, might need to top up the charcoal. I'll show you if I need to do that. I might need to add some wood if it stops smoking, but really we're just going to let this cook at 250 Fahrenheit, 120°C for the next probably 6 or 7 hours. Not going to spritz it, not going to do anything like that. We'll probably rotate it. We're pretty much just going to let it roll, and we will keep you updated. Right, so this has been holding steady at 250 for 6.5 hours, coming up to 7. Really impressed with the efficiency of this. It's kind of working like I imagine a Kamado would. I really haven't added much charcoal to it at all. I added 3 big chunks of charcoal, which I'll show you in a second. It's just held steady. I love these vents. It's just so easy to adjust the temperature if you need to. And I haven't really had to do that much. I pretty much dialed it in at the beginning and we were good. But yeah, really efficient. Let's check it out. I think I'm going to wrap it now. You can see we've got some really good colour on there. The fat's nicely rendered. The bark could be a little bit drier, but I'm worried that it might dry it out, so I'm just going to wrap it up, take it inside, wrap it up, put it back on the PK, and we should be good. In terms of how much charcoal we've used, you can see the new pieces that I put on. I added this, and maybe this actually, so 4 pieces. The rest of it is all what you saw at the beginning, and that was left over from another cook, from seasoning it. So yeah, it's been really efficient. So take this inside, get it wrapped. Just double layered foil. Just making sure that the seams are up so nothing leaks. It's really tight so we don't get too much steaming going on. And we'll put this back on the PK. Probably going to bump the temperatures up a little bit now we're wrapped. Not too worried about cooking a little bit hotter, about 275 or 135 Celsius. So I'm opening the top vent and might crank the bottom vent just a touch and probably peak at around 275. So it has been 7.5 hours, pretty much bang on. This has been running at 275, 280, pretty steady. And checked it about 2 minutes ago. It's probing super tender, so using the Thermapen just to check the very center of it and just make sure that it's probing kind of like butter, almost like peanut butter. So we're going to take this off and we're going to take it inside to rest, and then we are going to actually, before we shut it down, let me show you how much fuel we went through. So throughout the whole cook you can see that we went through a real minimal amount of fuel. There's still some nice big chunks of charcoal in there. You can see the ones that I put on about 3/4 of the way through. So this is super efficient. I'm shocked at how efficient it is and how easy it was to maintain the temperatures and just how little charcoal we used throughout. It honestly is like a Kamado. And it was very little effort the whole way through. So that's pretty cool. We'll take this inside and we'll let it rest. So the pork's been resting for about an hour and a half. It's pretty much at a good eating temperature. I've just rested it here in foil, nothing special, not in a cooler or anything like that because we're ready to eat. Let's get into it. It's looking good. Lots of juice in the bottom there. I didn't add anything to the wrap. You can see that it's nice and juicy. So we've got all our juice there. We're going to use that just to infuse back into the pork once we've pulled it, in case it's looking a little bit dry. Sometimes pork can be. But yeah, we'll just have to... I don't think we're going to need that juice. See there that it's nice and juicy. Not dry at all. Good bark. And that's just on the PK until it got a good colour. Wrapped it in tin foil. Didn't do too much else with it. You know, salt and pepper. Lots of good smoke. Lots of that post oak smoke. And yeah, you can see hopefully how juicy it is. So we're going to eat majority of this tomorrow. So I'm not going to pull it all right now. I'll let it rest a little bit more. It just falls apart. Good smoke ring, although not an indication of flavour. It looks good. So let's try it. I'm going to get a piece with some good bark. That is really good. Really good salt levels. The 2 parts pepper to 1 part salt is perfect. I think for a piece of meat this small, you can go really heavy on the rub and you're not going to over salt it. Really juicy, good smoke flavour. And as you can see, it's just falling apart. Super tender. Oh. So that's how to make pulled pork on the new PK, the original PK. Thanks very much to Pro Smoke for sending it over. There's a link in the description below where you can buy it. If you're considering like a Kamado or something like that, I'd consider this in terms of fuel efficiency. It's really good for steaks, and we'll get some videos on that in the future. Thanks very much for watching. Go follow me on Instagram. If you like this video, give it a like, drop me a comment below, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks for another video.